I have a love affair with a game called Magic the Gathering, and it's my all-time favorite game. I've been playing this game since 1994, and in the last few years, we've seen this game make some really amazing, awful choices. I've also loved Dungeons & Dragons during this period of time, and Wizards of the Coast also owns Dungeons & Dragons. Well, today, we finally saw what I think is the beginning of the inevitable end for Wizards of the Coast. We saw their president, Cynthia Williams, decide to resign. Now, at the end of the day, I don't think this is going to right the ship at Wizards of the Coast or anything close to it. If you guys remember, Cynthia stepped in 2 years ago, right about the time all of those really terrible decisions were getting made when it came to Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering, which I'll go into the details of my problems with the company in a little bit, but that's when Chris Cox got failed upwards to CEO of Hasbro, and we all know how well Hasbro is currently doing right now. So they'll probably just find somebody else to put in Cynthia's place to be in charge of the scraps of what was once a great company and continue to pump out ridiculous product and try to monetize it ridiculously. I imagine most of the bad decisions are being handed down from up top with Chris Cox anyway, so it doesn't matter really who's specifically there. But maybe Cynthia quit because she has a backbone and doesn't want to destroy these games anymore. Now, she came from Xbox, and when she got hired at Wizards of the Coast, a lot of people felt that meant they were going into the digital realm. They already had Magic the Gathering Arena, which has been, pretty damn popular for a lot of Magic players I know, but just also the numbers are doing really well. And a lot of people thought it was a pretty good sign they were hoping to push in Dungeons & Dragons into the internet as well. We've seen huge shows, huge podcasts with tons of talented voice actors, but still they are often playing role-playing games, and it just makes sense that you would want to have a digital version of Dungeons & Dragons to let people play. And of course, we saw Baldur's Gate 3, which was just a runaway success, getting Game of the Year and tons of awards just because it was an incredible game, right? So Cynthia, I think, maybe brought something to the table, and why she would be choosing to leave is anybody's guess. I'm featuring footage for world-class bullshitters right now, and he's taking a look at the toy aisle, and he proves again and again with these videos that Hasbro is just screwed because they are a toy company, and toys are just not hot anymore. People don't like to buy as much plastic garbage as they used to. If they do, they go for the really high-quality stuff. Licensed products don't sell the way they used to because so many of the licenses people used to love, they don't feel connected to anymore. So nobody wants a Star Wars doll, a Ghostbusters doll, because they've given up on those franchises. A lot of those franchises have met a miserable death. So when it comes to Wizards of the Coast, having both Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering, two games that are still successful, two luxury products, two toys that are still successful, you don't want to screw that up, Chris. You really don't. That's what's keeping your company alive. When it comes to Dungeons & Dragons, it's a household name again after a really rough couple of years, and that's because of the game Baldur's Gate 3. But you can give none of that credit to Wizards of the Coast, because at the end of the day, the company that made Baldur's Gate 3 is Larian, and they said they're done working with Wizards of the Coast. They don't want to deal with that company anymore. They would rather go make their own IP, and that sucks, because Baldur's Gate 3 is absolutely excellent, absolutely worth playing, and made Dungeons & Dragons cool again. And for whatever reason, they have to sever ties with Wizards of the Coast. Maybe that will change with Cynthia's departure. Probably not, though. Then when it comes to Magic the Gathering, the game continues to be extremely popular, but because of the terrible decisions they've made over the last couple of years, putting way too much product out, asking far too much of the consumer, we're starting to see entire sets utterly flop. We just went back to Ravnica, which is a huge thing for players. Most people love Ravnica. People get Ravnica tattoos on their bodies based on the guild they related to. And this set was coming out between two huge sets, so people ignored it. They didn't want to spend their money on it. The cards were underpowerful. They weren't flavorful. There's so much wrong with the product. And there's like 12 sets scheduled for this year. If you include the Commander decks, it's like 40 different products that are coming out just this year. Even in franchise players like me can't keep up. I've started proxying new cards rather than actually pay for them, which makes sense because in the last 2 years under Cynthia's rule, we saw them print official proxies, not the original cards, not the real cards, not reprints of the real cards, but cards you literally can't play with in a tournament setting that we were expected to spend, by the way, $1,000 for fake cards. So people are just proxying now. It makes way more sense than buying the official product, which in the case of Karlov Manor was a worthless product anyway. As much as I would like for this to be a sign that Magic the Gathering is going to be fine, you may not know this, but Magic the Gathering sets are worked on 2 years in advance. So the last product that was made during Cynthia's reign will be released sometime in 22-26. Her vision of the company will probably stay in place for the better part of the next 2 years. The number of products, the name of the products, the type of the products, all of that. Again, with Dungeons & Dragons, they've moved too far in the direction that they're going in. They're not going to back out now. A new president will not be able to fix that. And again, I still think all of these terrible decisions don't come from whoever's president of Wizards of the Coast. I think they come up from the top. I think they're getting handed down by Chris Cox himself. If you really want to see change at Wizards of the Coast or anything related to Hasbro, you got to probably get rid of Chris. And I don't think they're doing that. I think Chris is there to gut the company and sell it. I think that a lot of CEOs get appointed for that purpose. You are here to pilot us into the most profitable demise we can come up with. And I really feel like that must be what's happening with this company. Either that or they're just stupid. Probably the latter, though.